Hi all. So in this video I'm going to answer this booklet I just called the T5 work, and it's non-calculator and calculator. It's a booklet that I've given out, so I'm just going to answer the questions, the various types of questions that are on it. Okay, so we look for page 1, shorten that down, page 1. Okay, so page 1 says about a taxi firm displaying their fares as shown. And the fixed charge of £1.50 means that as soon as you enter the taxi, it's £1.50 to start with, plus for every mile you travel 75p. Now, be very careful already. This is in pounds and this is in pennies. So obviously there's going to be something where we're going to have to turn this into pounds. Okay, Joe's fare was £10.50. How many miles did he travel? Well, his total was £10.50. You need to take the £1.50 off that first. So that's £9. So £9 is how much he travelled in the miles. So you can either turn £9 into 900p and divide 900p by 75p to give you 12 miles, or if you wanted to keep it in pounds, it would be £9 divided by 0.75. Either way would give you 12. Part B of that question is asking you what would the formula be. Well, it has to be that one. F equals 1.50, which is the pounds, plus 0.75, which is the pounds. It wouldn't be £1.50 and 75. That's has to be both pounds. That's 150 and that's 75p. Okay. Now, the bottom part, question 6, is fairly straightforward. Again, don't make any mistakes. They're saying 3 Olympic mugs, so you put your 3 in there and multiply it with your calculator to give you £32.99. They're saying one souvenir set gives you that. The special delivery of £6.85 to give you that. Now, if, for example, they asked you to put VAT on, and VAT, as we know, is 20%. Can we just take a second just to make sure we know what that is? If you're finding 20%, 20% will give us 2/10. Okay, so that means you divide by 10 and multiply by 2. With or without a calculator, that's how you find 20%. That's the VAT. And if they asked you to put the VAT on, you multiply it out. So for example, if it was £80, 20% of £80 means 80 divided by 10, which is 8, times the 2 gives you 16. That's 20% of £80. Okay, just make sure we go back over that all the time, boys and girls. Okay, next page is our standard area of a trapezium, which of course is again top plus bottom times the height divided by 2. We never use any slanted heights in maths, okay? Again, take your time, do one thing at a time. Do the adding first to give you that, then the multiplying to give you that, and divide by 2 to give you that. Make sure it's centimetres squared. Do not put that sum straight into the calculator. One thing at a time. Okay, this second part is a standard one where I've spoken before. If they're talking about mass and density and volume, you must find the volume of the shape. So clearly we have found the area of this shape to be 296.1. We must need that for this, because if you read it, it says the trapezium in part A is the cross section of a prism of rock which measures 78 centimetres from front to back. What that means is that the volume will be the area, which is this, multiplied by the height or the length, which is this, to give us that volume answer. We're looking to find the mass, so you cover the mass, and that means density times volume. The density is in the question. 20 times the volume gives us an answer of 461,916. Please, boys and girls, make sure we're aware of that of all times. Any questions to do with density, mass, revolves around finding volume of a previous question. And the next question we have here is about conversions. And before, remember, we told you always to learn that. That's from pounds to kilograms, dividing by 2.2 and multiplying by 2.2 to give you this answer. This one here, they're telling you 2 inches is 5 centimetres. So if 2 inches is 5 centimetres, divided by 2 to give you 1 inch, which is 2.5. So 15 inches is 15 times that 2.5 to give you that. And the last one is kilometres to miles. So we're going from here to here, divide by 8, multiply by 5 to give us that answer there. This question here has got to do with three digits, 1, 4 and 7, and we don't know which way they go in, so you put the different options in: 147, 417, 714, 174 and so on. So that's your 6 options. And here we have Michael tries to guess his combination. The probability, which he guesses the right one, well, probability as we know is fractions, so one of those is correct, so that's 1/6. Okay, part C. Pam knows her combination locks uses the number 588. Which of Pam or Michael has more of a chance of guessing their own combination? Well, these two numbers are the same. So you can only have these options: 588, 885 and 858. You're not going to have the 6 options because 2 of these are the same. So no matter what way you write that down, you're only going to get those 3 numbers. So it's going to be easier for Pam to get it right because she's only 3 options as opposed to Michael, who had 6. And in the bottom here, I've spoken before about this. Only two four-sided shapes have exactly 2 lines of symmetry in rotational order 2, and them 2 shapes are the rectangle and the rhombus. They've both got 2 and 2. Remember, a square has got 4 and 4. A rectangle and a rhombus have 2 and 2, and a parallelogram has 0 and 2. No lines of symmetry and rotation 2. And it's also bearing noting that also an equilateral triangle has 3 and 3. 3 lines of symmetry and rotational symmetry of 3. Question 10, 1 decimal place. If we go to the first number, we put an arrow at 9, box that off, and that 9 will increase it to 6.0. 3 decimal places, arrow to 6, box it off, the 2 won't change it. 2 significant figures, the 2 zeros don't count, go to the 4, box it off, the 0 doesn't change it, so it's 0.064. Question 11 is probably the only tricky question in this page. Find a number which makes this statement correct. Now, what that means, you pick a number, any number, you add 3 to it, and it's the same as picking the number and multiplying by 3. Well, you can do it algebraically, which means n plus the 3 equals 3n. Load of equal signs, bring the n over to give 2n equals 3, so n is 1.5. Or if you're not too sure, just pick a few numbers to see if you can work. Pick 1, pick 2, pick 3. Generally speaking though, something like that there might involve maybe a decimal number. Okay, so have a think about that question. Question 12, fairly straightforward. We must, of course, make sure we go from pounds to euros, euros to pounds using our wee graph to get us an answer of 12.50. And the last one, the one at the bottom, in a survey of ages 80 rail passengers buying tickets in the train station, 32 were under 30. If there were 5,000 in total, how many people are under 30? So that just means 32 over 80 of 5,000. So you do 5,000, of course, divided by 80, multiplied by 32 to give you an answer of 2,000 as an estimate. Next question is a reflection question. The only thing that we need to know is that the y equals 1 goes across here. Make sure you draw it in, boys and girls, and make sure you write in y equals 1. Count the line and go across. Now, the much more difficult type of question is, for example, where they might draw, well, I've just drawn this in just very quickly, this triangle here, and they want to know, for example, what would that be reflected by. So you need to, for example, decide where that line would go, and if it's rotation or reflection, whatever. Just bear in mind, check my other videos for those types of questions where you have to work out what's happened. Again, with the standard ratio question here, add the parts and divide it by, and so on and so forth, and you realise that Alex gets 240, Bethany gets 600, but they want to know how much more does Bethany have than Alex, so you have to obviously take that away at the end and realise it's got £360 more. One underneath is a standard reciprocal question. This is the answer after you do this first, and you can simplify it down to that. The next question here is an indices question. We should know from before, when we multiply, we add. When we divide, we subtract. That's a multiplication and division, and this is raising one with brackets. Okay, so k to the 3 times k to the 3 gives you k to the 6. Now, this one here, as we said before, if it doesn't have a power, that's actually got a secret 1. So that's 1. So really what that means is k to the 3 divided by k to the 1, which gives you k to the 2. K to the 6, I've put the 1 in there. K to the 6 times k to the 1 gives you k to the 7. Divided by k to the 10, that means 7 minus 10, which is minus 3. It's not 3, because 7 is here first. 7 minus 10 is minus 3. And the last one is the brackets one, which you raise the powers. That means times. So that means k 2 times 4, which gives you k to the power of 8. Okay, so here we can see that all these numbers here have lines of symmetry that go across, horizontal lines of symmetry. H, B, C, D, E, well there's H, I, K, O and X. They're all horizontal lines that go across. Underneath are all the letters that have vertical lines of symmetry, lines that go up. A, H, I, M, O, T, U, V, W, X and Y. Next question here is about metric and imperial. The length of a book is measured in centimetres and inches for imperial. Capacity of a petrol tank is litres or gallons imperial. Make sure we remember those the difference or the relationship between metric and imperial. Miles, kilometres, pounds, kilograms. Also remember milligrams, which is smaller than grams. That might go with ounces for babies. Those type of things. You keep checking your notes and you keep going over your revision for those information. Here we have a question about probability. Spinner 1, spinner 2, spinner 3, spinner 4 and spinner 5. And here we've got one blue, half of this is blue, sort of 2/3 yellow, 1 red, and so on and so forth. The probability that the spinner lands on blue is 0. Which is that? That's spinner 2 because there's no blue. Which spinner has the greatest chance of landing on red? Again, that's spinner 2 because that's a half. And write down an approximate value for the probability that spinner 5 lands on a yellow. Well, spinner 5, the approximate value for the probability that spinner 5 lands on a yellow is 1/6. Because if you take this part here as half, which is or a wee bit more, that's 3/6. This here could be like 2/6, and this is like 1 part of 6. So if you take it all as 6, that'd be roughly 1/6 of the circle. I've answered this question in a previous video. This is basically just working out the volume of a pyramid, and they've given you the formula, which is 1/3 of the base area multiplied by the height. Well, the base area is 1257. The height is 21.6. So you multiply those both out, showing the examiner the answer, not just the calculator. Write the answer down. Then 1/3 means divide by 3 to give you this answer here. Make sure you have meters cubed in. Sometimes they don't put the value at the end, the units value at the end. Make sure volume is always cubed. Here we have a good question about just completing a bill. So the key thing to understand that if you're buying 2, this is the price for 2, which is £4. If you're buying 1, this is the price of 1, which is this price here, 65p. 1 here, which is £1. 2 of those, which is 180, and 1 of those, which is 225. Put them in a line, add them up with a calculator. If they haven't a calculator, just add them up in rows, columns. Here we have a substitution question. So the key thing is, as always, to remember to do is to put the minus signs. This minus goes in here, this minus goes in here. These letters, A is 5, 8B means 8 brackets 1/4, and 2C means 2 brackets 3. So put in the calculator 5 minus 8 brackets 1/4 minus 2 brackets 3, and that gives you a final answer of -3. The question underneath is about probability. Now what you need to do, they wanted to work out the probability that they do not buy foam. So the first thing you need to work out is how many people there are. 40 and 50 and 25 and 45 gives a total of 160. So 50 people buy foam. These people do not buy foam. So 40 and 25 and 45 gives you 110. So the probability if you're not buying foam is 110 over 160, which could of course simplify to be 11 over 16. But this answer is perfectly acceptable. Question 12 is a conversion from pounds to dollars. Philip is renting a home in Florida. It costs him £680, and then in August time it costs him $1,400. So what they want to know is how much more does he pay in August than May. Well, the first thing to do is to turn the $1,400, which is here, divided by 152 to give you the price of £921 and 5p. So if you take that price away from the original price in Florida, in May time it gives you that value there. Now, just to explain, folks, if on the calculator it gives you like 241.0678, because it's money, we always round to 2 decimal places. Okay, so that's actually what that would, if that was the particular question, or that was the particular sum, that number there would be 241.0678. 0.07. Okay, so just bear in mind, in the calculator, round it always to 2 decimal places for money. And then underneath, it's probably this is a tricky type of question, to be honest. It's a question that requires a lot of thinking. So a plane's flying between two cities. The plane leaves London. With all these questions, it's better to do a bit of a graph or something that you can see. London, flies to Glasgow, and then goes back to London. Leaves at 8:50 and arrives back at 1:05. The plane, so that total journey time for that is 4 hours 15 for there and back. However, it spends 45 minutes in Glasgow. So it spent 45 minutes in Glasgow, perhaps, letting passengers off, letting new passengers on, filling up with fuel. So if it was 4 hours 15, if you take the 45 minutes, it really means that it was 3 hours 30 in the air, which is 210 minutes. It says here the second flight is 10 minutes longer than the first. So what happens is if the second flight is 10 minutes longer, you have the 210 take away the 10 minutes, which gives you 200 minutes. Half that, which is 100 minutes, and then if you add 100 minutes is 1 hour 40. That means if they started here at 8:50 plus your 1 hour 40, it gets you into Glasgow at 10:30. Now look, folks, this is a difficult question. 4 marks. That would be a mark there. This would be a mark here. This would be a mark, and this would be a mark. So even if you didn't get to that end, the key thing to remember is to do your workings to allow the examiner to give you marks in questions like that. So have another read through that and see if you can understand exactly what that question is about. Now I thought this was a good question to do. This question here is about electricity readings from a bill. And what that means is this. This was the previous bill. So for example, this could be the bill in September time. Then somebody has come out in perhaps December time and read the meter again. Now this is the total reading in December. This was the previous reading. So if you take both those numbers away, that tells you how much units you used. That's the total amount of units used in December. That was the total amount of units used in September, for argument's sake. So the difference between those is what you used in that interim period. So for those type of questions, you need to take the readings away to tell you how much you used. Now, the cost of each unit is 0.1455. VAT is charged at 5%. Calculate the total bill. Well, what you do is, this is the units that you used, multiplied by this is the money that you have to pay, to give you this, 22116, rounded to 2 decimal places. I have to find 5% of that, so 5% means dividing by 100, multiplying by 5. Again, make sure you round it to 2 decimal places, so you add this and this to give you the total value. That's the total electricity bill. This value here is for this is the VAT, and that's the total. Okay, just have a good look at that question there, make sure you understand how to do that. And this question here is a very tricky question. It's really saying, can you do reverse percentages? They're saying that there are 0.15 people wearing glasses. That's 15%. And that 15% represents 72 people in the school wearing glasses. It doesn't say find 15% of 72. It's tricky. It's saying 0.15 is the 72. And they want to know how many people are there in total. Well, 72 pupils wear the glasses, which equates to 15%. I've written there a tricky question. What you have to do is you have to find 1%. So 72 divided by 15 gives you 4.8. Then, of course, you multiply it by 100% to give you 480. So the total amount of people in that school is 480. Have another think about that question there and understand the wordings of those two lines, because those two lines make it quite tricky. This question here is a volume question. It's saying that it's a hexagonal prism, which is this bit here. It's actually telling you that the area of that shaded area is 960. They told you the height is 1.2 and they want the volume. The only reason why this is a wee bit tricky is because this is centimeters squared, but this, folks, is meters. So you just can't do 960 multiplied by 1.2. You've got to turn them into centimeters. Remember, there are 100 centimeters in a meter, which means you must multiply that number there, 1.2 times 100. So 1.2 times 100 gives this value here of 120. After that, all you do is you multiply 960 by 120 to give us this centimeters cubed. Make sure for volume and make sure all those questions, folks, you have the right units answer in at the end. Okay, the next page we have, we'll just cover that's just the cover page. There, next page. Okay, so this is a quadratic graph, okay, with a calculator. So what we do for this is we make sure we put we have to substitute the numbers to try and find the one that goes with 0 and the one that goes with 1. So take the formula, which is x squared minus 2x minus 3, and substitute in the 0, which is 0 squared minus 2 bracket 0. Make sure that number is put in brackets, and then that's the minus 3. If you put that into the calculator, you get you minus 3. And then here, it's 1 squared minus 2 brackets 1 minus 3. Just make sure, folks, you write it out properly first, stick the numbers in. Okay, now, that now leads us to plot this graph. Now, because it's a quadratic graph with the squared, it's going to be like a U-shaped. Remember I told you it's going to be like a U-shaped. So, take your time and plot the graph. So, you plot the first point, which is minus 2. Remember, these are the numbers that go across. Minus 2 across, 5 up, which is here. Minus 1 across, 0 up, which is here. 0 across, minus 3 down, which gets you there. Next one is 1 minus 4, which you can see is there. 2 minus 3, which is there. 3, 0, which is there. And 4, 5, which is there. Be very careful, folks. These numbers are the first numbers. These go across. So this point here is the point 1, 0. This here, however, if we were plotting it, is the point 0 minus 1. Always across first. So if you're looking for this point here, that's 0 across and 1 up. So that's written 0, 1. However, for the point of, so for this particular question, you plot these points, the x and the y's, and you draw them on the graph. And you draw them freehand. That's not straight line, that's freehand, like a curve. And that gets us that quadratic graph. Next question we have here is a probability question. And the probability question, we've got different shapes. You have four-sided shape, sides with 4 sides, more with shapes with more than 4 sides, shapes with less than 4 sides. So you just count them. There are, of course, 6 shapes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a 6-sided shape. That's 1, 2, 3. That's a 4-sided shape, and so on. So what is the probability of Sarah getting a shape with 4 sides? Well, there's 4 of them there. There's 4 of them with 4 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 over 6. A shape with less than 3 sides, well, there's none of them. So that's 0. And a shape with less than 4 sides. There's only one of them less than 4 sides. That's the triangle. Remember, probability or relative frequency just mean put them in fractions. Okay, the next question is about litres and gallons. Now, no matter what happens, we need to know the formula to get from gallons to litres, multiply by 4.5, litres to gallons to divide by 4.5. Basically what's happening is this. Gary has 1 gallon of petrol and he wants to know if he can put it in a 5-litre can. So what happens here, he's got 1 gallon. So he's going from gallons to litres. Well, 1 gallon, 1 multiplied by 4.5 gives him 4.5 litres. He's got 4.5 litres of petrol. And the question is saying, basically, will it fit into a 5-litre can? Forget about all this here. We don't need to know that once we know this. So he's got 4.5 litres of petrol. Will it fill into a 5-litre can? Yes, it will hold it easily because there'll be half a litre left over. Once we know this information here, life becomes much more easier. This one here is a wee bit more trickier. Same scenario. We need to get from pounds to kilograms, divide by 2.2. Kilograms to pounds, multiplied by 2.2. Now, grapes cost $3.25 per kilogram. Calculate the cost of £1. This is where it's a wee bit tricky. So first things first, turn the kilograms to pounds. Kilograms to pounds, multiply. So 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds. That's 2.2 pounds. Now, it's saying that it's $3.25 for those 1 kilogram, which is 2.2 pounds. They want to know the cost of £1. So to find the cost of £1, what we need to do is we need to take the £3.25, divide it by the 2.2 to give us 1.477. Remember what I said to you before, decimal and money is the two decimal places, which gives you £1.48. Okay, wee bit of thinking in that there, because what you have to do first of all is of course turn it from kilograms to pounds, but they want the price of £1. £1. And because it's £1, we need to divide that by the 2.2 to get £1. Next question is a question about area. It says the area of the rectangle is 4 times the area of the triangle. Calculate the length of the rectangle. First things first, area of a triangle. Base times height divided by 2. We never use this 8. That's there to put us off. It's 10 times 6, which is 60, divided by 2, which is 30. The area of that triangle is 30 centimetres squared. Now, it's saying that the rectangle is 4 times that. Well, 4 30s, that must mean this rectangle here is 120 centimetres squared. Now, to find the area of a rectangle, it's this multiplied by that. So basically what we need to do is multiply this by something to get 120. So if you do 120 divided by 9.6, it gives you an answer of 12.5. So the length of that rectangle is 12.5. So the next question here is rounding decimal places and significant figures. Same thing as before. We want to round that to 1 decimal place. So arrow at the 5, box it off. That 5 will change it to 3.6. Next one, wee bit more trickier. They want you to fill in. Okay, so here now what we want to do is we need to look at the second one here. So basically what's happened here is you have to think of this number as 470. This, and this has to be 469 because that 8 will change that. Now, that's not actually correct. It can't be any number over 5. It must just be 9. Because if it was like, for example, if that was 6, if that was number 6, 4.66 would round to 4.67. So that number actually must be 9. Slight correction there on my behalf. So let me just take that out. So if you imagine that number is 470, if this was going to be rounded, that must be 469 to round to 470. And last one here, this is where there's lots of answers for this. Write down any whole number with no zeros, which would give 5600 and rounded to significant figures. So these two numbers must be 5, 6. These can be anything at all because we know after significant figures, the numbers after that don't count, they turn to 0. So that could be 5, 6, it could be 1, 5, it could be 5, 6, 2, 5, 5, 6, 3, 5. As long as this number here isn't 5 or more, it has to be less than 5 because we don't want to round it up. Okay, so tricky enough sort of questions there. Have an all to think about them there and see if you can work them out. Okay, the cost of 3 pens is 4.97. Calculate the cost of 1 pen. So that's 4.97 divided by 3. Again, watch out for this all the time. It's going to give you a long number, 1.655. Remember, this is money, so that must mean to 2 decimal places. So that must round to give you 166. Hard to believe that's 3 marks. Please do not write down 1.655, 1.6566. Always round money to 2 decimal places. Here's another standard question on pounds and kilograms. Again, make sure we write this in, pounds to kilograms, kilograms to pounds. So we know it's 240 pounds and we want to go to kilograms. So pounds to kilograms is divided by 2.2, again to give you 109.01, 109.09, which rounds to give you 109.1. And then finally, for the bottom one, name it. What is the name for a 3-sided shape that has rotational symmetry of order 3? Well, the only one that's got order of 3 and 3 lines of symmetry is the equilateral triangle. Remember, we went through it before. A square has 4 and 4. A rectangle and rhombus have 2 and 2. Equilateral have 3 and 3. And a parallelogram has no lines of symmetry and rotational symmetry too. Always remember them. Okay, next question here is inversion graph. We must plot these points accurately. As I said before, when we're doing graphs, we must at some stage work out what these are going up in and what these are going up in. So you count these up, you'll work out these are going up in 5s, and you can work these out here, these are going up in 2s. Please write that down, tell the examiner what's going on, because you'll need that for later on. Okay, so plot the point, 20, 35, 20 across, 35 up, has to be exactly there, can't be up here or down there, must be exactly at that point 35. 60, 105, 60, 105 is exactly there, and 100, 175 is exactly there. These numbers go across the bottom, these numbers go up here. Okay, now with a ruler, make sure we always start from 0 and connect that line right up. Okay, so there's 3 points, 3 marks for just doing that. Must be accurate. Again, must work out what these boundaries are. to work them out. Okay, now I'm going to shorten this down a bit here and put the next part of this question up beside it. Okay, let's see if we can make that a bit bigger. So the next part says, explain how to use your graph to convert 240 pints to litres and write down the answer. Well, we can see that there is not, if I just make this a bit bigger, put that a bit smaller, that there is not 240 pints here. We can't get to 240 pints. But what I did do is I went to 120, right across very accurately with a ruler, come down and work that out to be 68. So in other words, 120 pints gives me 68 litres. I'm looking for 240, so double that up. I could also have done this. I could have got 60 pints from the graph, which is 34, and multiplied it by 4. Either one of those two is fairly acceptable. Let me shorten that down. Okay, and part C says, Alex bought 75 litres of milk and Barbara bought 120 pints of milk. Who bought more? Well, the easiest thing to do is to go to Alice. So I'll shorten that down there and look for Alice's 75 litres of milk. So we go to 75 litres of milk, which is here, 75. And well, I never drew that in because I already knew the answer. But what you need to do is get a ruler and go to 75 litres. Remember, they're going up in twos. So that's 68 there. I know that's 70, 72, 74. So 75 is there. Get a line up, draw a straight line up, and then a straight line across, and you realise that will give you exactly 131 pints. So 75 litres is 131 pints. Barbara only bought 120 pints, so Alice is the answer. Alice bought more. Okay, make sure we do that information on the graph. All lines on the graph so the examiner can see what's going on. Probability lines. First one, probably it will snow in Belfast in July. Now, it's not impossible. It's not impossible. So it can't go there, but it goes as close as possible. It goes as close to zero without hitting zero. Probably it will rain in Belfast next year. Again, it's not absolutely certain. It's not a certain thing. It's probably very, very, very certain, but it's not totally certain. Okay, and probably you get a tail when you throw for a coin is half, 50-50. It has to go there. And the last one, the weather forecaster says there's a 70% chance of rain tomorrow. What's the probability it will not rain? Well, if there's 70% rain, 30% no rain. Scale factor of enlargement, if you just count the length, that's 1, 2, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So scale factor of 2. This here is twice as big. How many times bigger is the area of triangle B than the area of triangle A? So it's 2. It's a scale factor of 2. Remember I told you it was double double. So double double means 2 times 2. So 2 squared is 4. If it was, as I said before, if it was a scale factor of 6, it'd be 6 squared. It'd be 6 times 6, which is 36. Double double. Always remember that there. Key point to note. 2 easy marks. How many times bigger is the area of B than the area of A? So for example, if it was a scale factor of 12, the area would be 12 times 12, double double. 12 12 is 144. Just please watch for that type of question, folks. And just when we're at it, just be very careful that we make sure that we're enlarging it the right way. So for example, it's going from triangle A to triangle B. So it's getting bigger, not smaller. Again, we have a question about conversions from euros to pounds, pounds to euros. Make sure we draw that in, pounds to euros. Multiply by 1.2, divide it by £1.20. We're going from euros. Want to know what it is in pounds. So we're dividing that by 1.20, which gives us £22.50. Always to 2 decimal places. Now the next one is a double part. I think the next part I'm going to put the next part of the page up as well beside it. But first of all, when we're doing graphs, we must first of all, no matter what's happening, work out what's going up. These are going up in 0.2s, 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, because that's 1. So they're going up in 0.2s. Tell the examiner that. This is time. So time will be either going up in 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 10s, 12s, 15s, or 20s. Okay? So you can see there that's 1130. See, that's 1130. So they must be going up in another 5s or 6s. So 6, 12, 18, 24. They're going up in 6s. Okay. Now, from this here, let's see what, before we look at the question, what's happening. It's something about Harry going on a run from Oldbridge to Newbridge and back. Okay, so before we even look at the question, we can see he started here at 11 o'clock. He ran, he must have took a break or something, then he ran again. He got as far as Newbridge, which is 10 miles away, and then he run back home. Okay, so he started at 11 and he was back home at 3 o'clock. Now, let's look at this graph. He's running, the steepest part is always the fastest. So he's running the fastest there. He took a break. He's running fairly fast, and then he's running a wee bit less fast. He's running a wee bit slower coming back home. Okay, now let's look at the question and see what the question's asking us for. So I'll try and shorten that a wee bit down for the minute. Have a look at this question. There's probably a question about distance, speed, time. Okay, so the question says, what is Harry's average speed on the return journey from Newbridge to Oldbridge? So we need to put our distance, speed, time graph up, and we're looking to find the speed. So we need the distance divided by the time. So we know from the graph that we're going on the return journey home. So that's this part here. We want to know his average speed heading home. So the distance from there to home is obviously 10. The time. Now, let's look at the time. That time there is, remember, use your ruler, draw the line down to get it. That's 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. That's 2 hours. That's a very simple question. Not often you see something as simple as that. So the average speed is the 10 divided by the 2, which gives you the 5. Okay, part B says, between which times is Harry running at his fastest average speed? Well, that's the one that's the steepest. So it's this time here. It's from 11 to that time there. So you have to come down and work out that time, and they're going up in sixes. So that's 11:06, 11:12. That, if you bring that line down, that'll be between the 2 points. So that actually gives you 11:15. Very important to do that, boys and girls, very accurately with the ruler. Okay, because when you bring that down, when you bring this point down, you'll see that's between midway between a box, which means that's got up. That'll be like between 11:12 and 11:18. And part C, give a possible reason for the horizontal line. Well, a possible reason he's taking a break here. He went to the shop or whatever, took a break. Something, having a rest is a fairly straightforward answer. Okay, now, I might just take this opportunity just to ask this question. What would the average speed be from this run here? So average speed, as we know. To find average speed, we do our, I'll just do it here. Move that wee one out of the road a wee bit. Okay. That's our formula for speed. So if I wanted to find the average speed of this particular part of his journey, what I need to do, I need to work the distance. Well, let's work the distance out. The distance is 3. Okay, let's change colour. So that's 3. Okay, divided by the time. Now, I worked that time out. If you take that down, you'll see that gives us, that's 11:15, which is 15 minutes. Now, there's 2 ways of doing that. 15 minutes is the same as a quarter of an hour. So it could be 3 divided by 0.25, which would give you the answer. But if you didn't like that, the way I would do it is 3 divided by 15 multiplied by 60. Either one of those 2 answers will give you the correct way of doing it. And I think 3 divided by 15 multiplied by 60 gives us, I think, 12 miles an hour. Same, 3 divided by 0.25 gives you 12 miles an hour. Either one of those 2 ways is acceptable. But that, boys and girls, is how you deal with those types of questions. Here we have a standard probability question. This is clearly a non-calculator question. So they want this missing probability value here. So as we know, this plus this plus this plus this gives you 1. So if you add that up, that would be like 20 plus 35 plus 30. That wouldn't be 3 plus 2, which is 5, because they were trying to trip you up. You need to put an extra 0 in there. So that's 20, 35 and 30. If you add that up, that gives you 0.85. So how many to get from 0.85 to 100 is 0.15. Okay, fairly straightforward standard probability question. Again, one of these favourite area of trapezium questions. The key thing to note is that you must turn it round. Turn it actually round so you can see this here. This here is the top. This is the bottom, and this is the height. So when you're in the exam, turn that round. Again, one thing at a time. 18 plus 27 is 45. Then on your calculator put in 45 times 13 equals 585. Then do 585 divided by 2, which gives you 292.5 centimeters squared. Don't put that all straight into the calculator because they'll use BidMass first and it mightn't necessarily give you the right answer. Just be very careful about them types of questions. Here we have a question about relative frequency. It's a spinner and it's got a red and a yellow. Clearly there's a red and there's the yellow. The arrow is spun 1000 times. The table shows the relative frequency, that's just the probability, of an arrow landing on a red after a different number of spins. So after 50 spins it's a relative frequency of 0.44. After 100 it's a relative frequency of 0.37. After 200 it's a relative frequency of 0.34. Remember, the bigger the trial, the better the relative frequency. The more spins you do, the better your results will be. Okay, so the question's saying, in the first 200 spins, how many times had the arrow landed in red? Well, there's 200 spins. The probability was 0.34. You multiply them two numbers, and that gives you 68. What that really means is this, that in 200 spins, it landed 68 times. If you wanted to find how many it landed after 1,000, it'd be 1,000 times 0.32, which would be 320. Okay, that's how you do with these types of questions where you've got a number of spins and relative frequency. You multiply those two. And here we have another quadratic graph. This time, different type of quadratic. You've got 2x squared minus 4x minus 5. Again, we're looking at the two missing numbers. We're looking at the number for this one, and we're looking at the number for this one. So use this information to write it in. So that's the 2 there. Then put in the brackets the minus 2 squared minus the 4 brackets minus 2 for the x minus 5. Put that sum into the calculator and you'll end up with 11. There. Again, write the sum out. This 2 is there. X squared is the 2 there to give you 2 brackets with the squared minus the 4 times 2 minus 5. Put that into your calculator to get minus 5. I want to see there's another one actually missing here. So let's fill that in now. So this sum here for the 4 would be 4 squared minus 4 times the 4 minus the 5. Okay, and then use your calculator to put in that missing sum there. So that's that first part of that question. Part B says draw the graph. So what we have to do is we have to draw this graph for these numbers on the opposite page. I'll bring that page up in a minute. So again, these are the numbers that go across. Minus 2 across, 11 up. Minus 1 across, 1 up. 0 across, minus 5 up. And remember, whatever happens here, we're going to have some sort of quadratic graph. Going to look like a bit like a U of some description. Okay. So, and then the third, let's shorten that down and let's see what that graph looks like. So we'll bring the other one up. And we can see that when we plot those points, there's the first point. Let me make that a bit bigger. There's the first point there. Minus 2, 11. Minus 1, 1. And so on. You can see, I'll just move the shape up a wee bit. You can see I've plotted all the points. Drawing them freehand, you end up with your U shape. Okay, so that's the part B. That's that question there. Part C is the question, the 2-mark question. Only the people that really can do this properly will get these marks. And we've got to make sure, boys and girls, we're that. Draw the line y equals minus 2 and find the x values at the point of intersection. What that really means is this, that when we drew our quadratic graph, which is that shape there which we drew, we're going to draw the line y equals minus 2. Remember, y lines go across. So we're going to draw across at that line y equals minus 2, and we're going to read that value, and we're going to read that value. That's basically what we're going to do. So if I shorten that down, bring the other graph back up, make it bigger, you can see I've drawn in the line y equals minus 2. I've found that point there, read it at 2.6. I found this point here, read it at minus 0.6, and those two answers there are the x values of minus 0.6 and 2.6. Now, if, for example, they had asked us to draw the line y equals 4, then the line y equals 4 is with the ruler going across there. Okay, if they're asking you to draw y equals 1, it would be there. Okay, and then you would read them points there and there, and there, and there. Whatever it is. Just be careful, remember, Y lines go across. That's the X-axis. Just to reiterate, Y lines across, X lines up and down, X-axis goes across, Y-axis goes up. Okay, be very careful with them there. There's the Y-axis there. Okay. And then the last part of this booklet is just a quick recap on how to add and subtract fractions if they don't allow you to use a calculator. What you do, here's the sum here, 4 over 7 plus 1 over 3, big long line at the bottom, cross multiply, 4 times 3 gives you 12, 1 times 7 gives you 7, and then most importantly 7 threes give you 21. The bottom two numbers multiply to the bottom, add here, because it's add, 12 plus 7 is 19 over 21. Similarly, the only difference for subtraction is same thing as before, big long line, cross multiply, 4 times 3 is 12, 1 times 7 is 7, this time it's minus, so put the minus in there, 21 at the bottom, 12 minus 7 is 5 over 21. That's how you add and subtract without the calculator.